Welcome back to another epic GameMaker Studio tutorial, and this is gonna be a special one because hey, outline and shaders, the good and more difficult stuff, which could be kind of interesting because I think this is pretty cool stuff. And what I'm gonna show you is basically how we can recreate this white outline with a shader. And then what you saw here with the crab guy is a little bit more advanced version, but this is locked for my patrons, so if you want to have that, well, you can kind of recreate it with this one. So basically this is kind of same syntax but a little bit more fleshed out, but basically the same. So if you understand how this works, I guess you could make the same thing apply and make this kind of fake glow, which I did for my second shader. And of course this is not really based on by me. Let's start again. So I didn't do this. That was actually by GameMaker Casts, pretty cool channel by the way. He showed this also, but I thought like, hey, let's make it a little bit more tangible, because I thought like, hey, for beginners or medium people, this could be kind of difficult to understand how this whole thing works out. So what is actually the whole thing, why it is working, and therefore a few things which I wanted to show you. Of course, once again, it was actually GameMaker Casts who had used this kind of code, which was pretty sweet. So hey, props to you. And well, let's dive right into the good stuff. So the first thing which I guess needs to be understood is how does actually this work. So first of all, what we're gonna do is we are grabbing the specific sprite on its image index. So basically this is a pointer which is saying like, hey, we are here. Let's take a different color. We are here. Sweet. This is of course better. And then what we are doing, we are getting this whole area which is empty. So this is what we're going to do. We are just grabbing everything which has no pixel on it. So basically it's not empty. And then we're just saying like, oh, but we just want to have everything which is on, let's say, one texel. This is very similar to pixel, but not completely, because pixels are the things which you're seeing on the screen. So basically we are getting things which are inside. And how is that actually working? So basically we're just grabbing once again this whole area which is empty, and then in this empty area we're just checking like, hey, if you go one unit to the left, which is one texel, is there something which is not transparent? If it's not, cool, let's draw on that point, pixel, color or whatever, and then the same thing we apply. Let's say for example from the right side, we're just saying like, hey, is one texel to the right, so here, is there something which is not transparent? If yes, draw a pretty neat color once again on this. And of course we do the same thing on the bottom and then on the top. So for example top, is there something, if we go one texel downwards, is there something which is not transparent? If yes, hey, draw a color on that. And this is the whole theory behind it. That is basically how it works. So hopefully this is quite understood. And of course this is not too beginner friendly, so let's not lie about ourselves. So here, if you're having troubles about texture pages, water shaders and so on, then I highly recommend watching my videos. Link in the descriptions below, where you get in a kind of a picture about this kind of stuff, because I'm not gonna go into super detail. Of course I will make it as easy as possible so you understand what's actually happening, but here shaders are a little bit more advanced, and therefore just take that with a grain of salt. So if, for example, if you don't know how you get your texture pages, so you go under here, game options, and then for example here for me is Windows, so, and then it will open a new window because why not, and then you go under graphics, then it's a hey, texture page size, and then you go under preview, and then well, it will show you and generate a texture page. Texture page is just basically taking all your sprites, all your images, and trying to cram it in, and well, trying to fit it into one page. And of course there are white spaces, and this will be an issue later on, but That's how it looks like. Of course, this one is pretty empty, there's not too much going on. And then, well, this could be, for example, a pointer which is saying like, hey, this is sprite so and so on the image index 2 or 3 or whatever. And then, for example, this one, which one, this is then, for example, one we are grabbing, and then we are applying all that stuff. And therefore we need first of all the sprite index, then the image index, which one will, and this will give us back the pointer which we need to get. And then we are grabbing the texels width and height, and then just taking this whole transparent area and then subtracting it here and here and here and here, and then we are drawing this outline. Once again, this is the whole theory behind it. So let's go create our shader. Here we go, call it outline 2. And then what do we need? Well, we just need one shader, which is the fragment one, not the vertex. Vertex just for position. Go bye bye. And here what you need to understand is, if, for example, if you apply a shader to, let's say, a sprite, then it will go through all the positions and return a color, so GL frag color. And this thing is a thing which we're gonna manipulate. So we are grabbing things which are on the texture page, so GM texture page, then its coordinate, and then taking the alpha values and just checking like, hey, is the alpha 0? So basically it's transparent, and then bam, let's do something. So actually let's start with a shader so you can see a little bit the syntax. First of all, we are creating a vec4, which we can call, I don't know, the end color or the end pixel. Let's call it end pixel, because hey, in the end it's just a pixel for us. Call it end pixel, and then go take that stuff and put that away. And of course, for now nothing has really changed, we just swapped a few things, but we want to have a little bit more control. So for now nothing has changed. And now we want to grab all the stuff which is around the player. So basically for now we are just grabbing the transparent area and making it, for example, white. So how can we do this? Well, we just say, hey, if, and then we are just taking that part. So basically, hey, on the texture page, with this specific coordinate, what kind of alpha value do we have? So if you are not sure why this is vec4, vec4 just means it's a vector with 4 input points. So red, green and blue, and then the fourth value is an alpha, and therefore this is for alpha. Of course you can say R or G or B or RGB. Actually, yeah, it does exist. Okay, of course you can RGB. Yep, these are the indexes. So as you can see, these values do exist. And once again, very important to understand, a shader is not the same as the rest of GameMaker Studio, because here you need to apply a few more rules. This is more stringent, so GameMaker Studio is quite forgiving in a lot of regards. Here it is not. It will simply not work at all, or to throw very quickly an error. And the error messaging in this kind of environment is kind of pointless in my opinion. You cannot really see what your mistake was. So here, take this with a grain of salt. So once again, what is the shader doing? It's just getting all the positions, so all the pixels. So basically, if we are taking this one, it's just taking this and this and this. So basically all those points here, all those texels, and it will just check like, hey, what kind of alpha value you're having. Basically, you're just taking all the pixels, even though this stuff is empty. We're just taking all those points in, and then running it through the graphics card, and then it will return a pixel for you. So this is how, well, your picture is being generated. And then we're just saying like, hey, are you smaller than 0.0? And one little thing, for example, you cannot write 0, it must be 0.0, it must be a float, so a decimal point number, because everything in shader language, because this is not GML, this is not GameMaker language, this is the shader language now, works with floats, and floats always are decimal points. So here, this is a big thing where you can have kind of problems if you don't follow this very, very strict rule. Okay, so what do we do? Well, for now, this area is grabbing all those points which have an alpha of 0. So what can we do? We just say like, hey, vec4. So we just say like, hey, our end pixel is a vector 4. So basically we just create one and say 1.0. So basically we just painted everything white, and for now nothing is happening because we haven't applied the shader. So let's do that quickly. Let's get rid of that stuff. So first of all, to apply a shader, well, we say shader set, and then we of course take the one which we have created, and then of course we need to reset. So shader resets, here we go. And then we want to draw ourselves because we want to apply it to ourselves once we are drawing, and therefore everything which is happening inside here are all those pixels or all those texels which are part of this thingy here. And now what you will see is hopefully that we are drawing a rectangle around it which is white. Yep, we are. So what you're seeing here, so this is the whole transparent area which we have drawn now white. Great, but of course we don't really want that, and for that we need to once again grab a few things. So here let's go into our player. We need to handle and input and grab very specific things which are the texels of our object player. For that, first of all, we need a uniform handle. So let's call it, I don't know, uniform handle. This is just a variable in the create event of our player. Say, hey, shader get uniform. Why is that? Because we want to manipulate things which are inside the player. So which shader? Well, the one which we created. And how can we call our handle? I don't know, let's call it texture pixel or texel or whatever we can call it whatever you like. So we just call it texture pixel, and this will be in the end vector 2 because we need to have two inputs, which is a height and a width. And of course we take this one inside our shader, delete that stuff because we don't need it, and then we say, hey, uniform, here we go, vec2 is a vector, and then bam, this thing. And this now we will be using in a few minutes, seconds, whatever. And to grab those things, so first of all, here we are finished with the create event. I can actually copy that. And now we need to grab a few things from our texture, and therefore we say, hey, texture, I don't know, and say like, what kind of sprite are we using, and where is it actually coming from? This is the interesting part. So sprite get texture, here we go, and here it needs some inputs which are your sprite which you want to have and the sub image. And because we want to apply it to this guy here, we can actually take the inbuilt things, so sprite index and image index also. And now we want to grab the texture width and the texture height. I'll just copy it in here so I don't have to go into the create event. So texture width. How can we grab this? We say, hey, texture get, and then you can actually of course get the width, but we don't want that. We want the texel width and the texel height. And then it's just saying that, but from which texture? Well, the one which we stored in this variable. And then of course we can do this for the height also. So bam, height with H of course, come on. And then once again from our texture. And now we want to pass in that stuff into our handle. So how can we do this? Well, we just say shader on set, then uniform, and then there are quite a few, but we just want to have this one. And the F stands for float values, so once again we need to put in some. And then, well, which uniform handle are we using? Well, the one which we created. And now we can put in multiple values or one value, but because this is a vector 2, which is consisting of 2 values, therefore we just take the texture width and the texture height, and then we are pretty much finished here. So once again, this is, make it a little bit tangible, we are putting inside this handle, so basically this thing which is this the vector which is inside the outline shader, 2 values, so a vector which has two input values, which is texture width and the texture height. And of course here we need to have height. Come on, completely wrong from my side. Sweet. Okay, and now what do we want to do? We want to get now those points which are, so let's make it once again, we have those transparent areas, but we want to get those points which are near to our guy here. And for that, what do we do? Well, we go once again in our shader, and here we need to grab a few things. So first of all, we need to establish a value. I don't know, he called it alpha, so let's take it also alpha, set it to 0.0 as a default value, because here once again we are in the area which is transparent. Then float, because we need to define it. And now we are grabbing, and we are just grabbing now one side, which is from our texture page a specific coordinate, the alpha value. And what do we want to do? Well, we want to have a little position, but we don't want to have this specific position which is in here. We want to have the x position and the y position, which are values between 0 and 1. So for example, if you have a texture page and then this is then 0, 0, and then it ends here 1, 1. Therefore, you don't really have the traditional 1 pixel to the right, 2 pixels downwards and so on, x and y position. The x and y position is normalized, and therefore it is between 0 and 1 as a total length or x position, and then of course the same for the y. So these are relative values. Let's go back in here, or normalized values. And so we are just taking the texture coordinates x and y position, and therefore we need to make a vector to split that up into 2. So basically we're just splitting up that thing into 2 points. Bam. And now we're taking the alpha, but for now this is actually not doing anything. So therefore we want to store that into our alpha value and say max, and maximum is basically a function which is, if you can have multiple inputs and then it will grab the biggest one which is in there. So for example, if you put in, I don't know, 12 or 0, 1 and 3, then well, it will grab the 12 because this is the maximum value. And of course there's the min value, but well, we won't be dealing with this one. So what do we do here? This is kind of a trigger. And then we will actually change the position, because here it will decide, hey, are we taking the 0, 0 alpha value, or we're taking this new alpha of this very specific position here. And for now it is still 0, 0, because well, the alpha on the same spot is 0, 0. Therefore we need to go, let's say now, minus to the left of what? A texture pixel. So here we go. Did I do this correctly? Yes, I did this correctly. So here we go. And then let's check it out how this actually looks like. And for now there's no change because I actually didn't do anything. My bad. So we're just saying like, hey, and this whole syntax actually made sense because, come on, let's make it bigger. then we're just checking, hey, is our alpha value still 0? Then we won't be doing anything. But is the alpha value bigger now than 0? So if alpha, let's say it's not equal to 0.0, then paint it white. And for example, now this will actually work, and then we will not have the transparent area, just the thing which is on the right side. So as you can see, we are painting now a white line on everything which is right from the sprite. So here, this is how it works, and then of course we can replicate it for the left side, top, and the bottom one. This is how it works. So once again, we are in our area which is completely transparent, there's nothing in there. Then we are just checking, hey, we want to grab a position which is left. For example, this is the left, and then for example, if the alpha value or the RGB or whatever, but the alpha value is actually a good indication, is the alpha value actually not 0, so this is not a transparent area, bam, we got a winner. And this winner is saying like, hey, cool, actually draw something in there. For example, if there is nothing, so for example, if we are somewhere here or here or here, because here it doesn't matter, then it will not do anything, it will skip. So this is how this whole extra code works. And of course, now what we can do, we can kind of replicate that and make it a little bit different. For example, now we go to the right side, so we add this vector to here and to there, and now you see on both sides. And why do we actually need this texture pixel, also basically this texel of that thing? So for example, you could say like, I just go for 1.0, so I just go 1 pixel to the right. But let's check it out how this works, and you will see that it does not work at all. So maybe let's go for 0.4. Maybe now it works. No, not really. So as you can see, we need, because here we don't deal in pixels, we are dealing now on the texture page in texels, and therefore we need to have the texel on the left side, which is kind of a unit, go 1 to the left. Therefore we need to have this kind of point added or subtracted on the horizontal, and of course we can do this on the vertical, to so kill that here and then add it, but of course now with Y, and then do the same, but what are we, minus Y. Here we go. Let's check it out, and now we are drawing around that dude. Sweet. As you can see, works pretty good, but it kind of cuts out, and this is the reason, because, and this is the final thing, if we are having, let's go into the graphics once again, if we are having those kind of graphics, they are pretty much clamped, something like this, and then it cannot go into an area, for example, which is not there, and then, well, that dude is, damn it, I cannot show it. So basically, it will kind of clamp on. So how can we remedy this? Well, for the one thing, you can put everything on a single texture page. Completely not recommended, please don't do this. But you can do this, or you can go into your tools, texture groups, and then set the automatically crop area, just don't flag it as on. So basically, what is GameMaker Studio trying to do? So if you have this thing which is by default set in, then it will try to cramp everything in, and for example, if there are empty spaces, it will try to squeeze everything in so it kind of fits. So in this kind of regard, there are no free spaces, and therefore the thing cannot be drawn correctly. And of course, one way to remedy this is, for example, I don't know, object player. Let's go into the sprite, and what we can actually do is as you can see, 16 by 16. So we just increase the canvas. Let's go for 32 by 32, and then we're having tons of space around this guy. And now we need to bottom center. Yeah, this is not a good idea. 16. No, let's go for 24. Oh, sweet. So now it should actually work, because now we're having more empty space and we are not cropping that. As you can see, now everywhere, and we don't have those kind of things which it is cutting out. So this is how you can do this. 25 minutes in, and yeah, and of course hopefully you learned something, you know how to replicate it. Once again, that thing, Patreon, this is of course free because now you saw it, easy peasy stuff. This is pretty powerful. Now for example, if you want to change, and this is what this guy did in his video too, so I'm not gonna be evil to you guys. Therefore, if you want to have your outline a little bit thicker, then you can take this and store it into a variable. Let's call it vec2, I don't know, thickness. Of the outline, and therefore we take this one and then multiply it, I don't know, by a value of 2.0 or whatever. And for example, if we just subtract it here, now we have it everywhere there, and then you will see that we have an outline of 2 texels, and here of course that will be seen as 2 pixels. Sweet. Is it cutting off? No, it's not cutting off. So that was pretty much it. Hopefully you kind of interesting. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and that was it for today. Have a good one. Wanna Bindi.